I have my version of the show tracker, and I'm going to put it in and do some queries. You do not have to have, your version does not have to look like mine. And in fact, if you want to follow along, you're welcome to, but I would not name it show tracker. I'd name it like show tracker B or show tracker, something different, a little bit different. So let me maximize now there. Whoa. I'm going to go up to files, and you can do this or you don't have to, but I'm going to do files. And if it ever shows up, I have a text file in here that is basically, so it's a show tracker JSON text. And as I said, you don't necessarily have to follow what I did here. I'm going to download it because I found that copying and pasting from here doesn't work. But it does if I download it with a noisy code. So one of the things I'll say about mine is that I think I was still a little, I did this last year. I think I'm a little still tied to the relational model, so that there are a lot of yours were a little freer and might actually be better. So as I said, I don't want you to not do yours. I want you to try them, but this will be just to show some examples. So I'm going to download it. And I will save it. And then I'm going to open the folder, and I'll right click and open it with Notepad. You guys need a zoom on that. So if you right click on it, you can get it open with, and I'm going to open it with Notepad. So this is what it looks like. All right, so I'm just going to leave that up, and I'm going to open up MongoDB. Right, MongoDB is the server, and I'll minimize that. And I'm going to do Mongo, and I'm going to do Mongo rather than Compass. But you guys can try to use it if you want. I found a lot of things in there are really hard to do. But you don't have to code, but you still have to, it took me a long time to figure out. If you want, I can show you how to do a submodel and things like that in there. It won't allow you to enter multiples, so you have to enter one at a time. There are better GUIs for it. I think I mentioned them. RoboT is a better GUI. And there might be more to Compass than I know. It didn't exist last year. It didn't exist 2 months ago when I downloaded this. So it's fairly new, and there may be elements of it I just haven't discovered. So you're welcome to play with it. But this is the command line Mongo. So I'm just going to look and see what I have on here. So I'm going to say show databases. And I have no databases. That's fine. So I'm going to use, and I'm going to do this as show tracker 2. Just so it doesn't, if you did have show tracker, you don't want to overwrite it, right? You don't want to add these to that. So I'm just going to use show tracker 2. And the way this generally works, I've created the database, but if I don't put anything in the database, it'll go away, right? I've discovered that if you leave it empty, it eventually goes away. If you add something to it, then it's permanently there. That's another thing that I found in Compass is that you can't just say use show tracker 2 and have a database. You have to go to the button create database, and then you have to move it over. All right, so the kinds of things that I have is I have venue, I have fans, I have shows, I have artists, and then I I have some queries I pre-wrote too so that I could remember them. So one of the things you can do is you can insert this whole group if you want, if it's set up right. Now, if you're doing this on your own and writing them in Notepad, sometimes it's easier if you're having problems to insert them one at a time rather than as a group. So I am going to go from the parentheses to the parentheses. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste. And then I'll press enter. And it inserted 4. Now, if there had been even one comma out of place, it would not have inserted.
You went from the curly to the curly?
Not from the curly to the curly, from the parentheses to the parentheses.
No.
If you're inserting multiples, you have to have these square brackets too. And you can't see that, but at the end of each one of these, there's a comma. Just to show that it succeeded, I'm going to do db.venues.find, and I'll do .pretty. Did I do .pretty before for you guys? It just makes it a little easier to see. So also I'll kind of show you what I did here, but again, you guys go with what you've got, and I'll talk to you a little bit about it. I made my own ID, right? And it doesn't have to be a number. For this one, I made my own ID, and it's a word. I gave an address, city, zip mail, email, URL, the restrictions, and the kind of genres that the venue does. You don't necessarily have to do that. As I said, that's just how I did it. Does that kind of make sense as a look? And you can kind of see the curly brace here. One of the things about Compass is it hides the curly braces and the commas, which I don't know if that's good or bad. What?
What did you type again?
I did db.venues.find.pretty. Pretty is what makes it display this way, as opposed to just in lines. Did it work for you? Yeah. So I'm going to insert the next one, which, let me find my notepad, is fans. These are not like relational tables. You can insert them in any order because there's no relationships, right? In relational databases, we had all that pain of trying to make sure that everything went in the right order. You don't have to worry about that with this. There are lots of reasons people like NoSQL. One of them is that they're just really easy to work with. That being said, it's really easy to make messes too. So I'm going to do db.fans.insert, and I did the from parentheses to parentheses. Copy. Pasting is, you can usually get it by just right-clicking. If that doesn't work, up here there's a little thing that says edit, and paste is one of the elements of an edit. When it comes down here, again, if you press enter. Now, I guarantee you that when you try to do these, oh, come on, go. There it goes. You're going to have errors in your typing at least a few times. And the error messages that it gives you are really crappy. So it's almost always a curly brace, a square bracket, or a comma. Right, that's out of order. So that has 6. And if I do, you don't have to do this, but you can do db.fans.find And I'll do the pretty again. Okay. So with fans, what I did, I let it give them an ID, so you can see what their ID is like. Right? I also, what artists they want to follow and what genres they want to follow. Does that make sense? Again, you can do it your own way. If something in here sparks something you want to change, that's great too. But it is possible you could do all of this in like 1 or 2 collections, just by combining things. They would be more complicated collections, with lots of sub-objects and things, but you could do that. I suggest you use the command line like this, but write it in Notepad, copy it over. Then if it fails, you can edit it in Notepad, right? Because it's just easier to edit in Notepad. It's possible to edit in the command line, but it's a lot more difficult. The other thing, when you're doing these, don't use tabs. Tabs seem to be poison characters. You can space it with the space bar, but tabs are a problem. All right, so my next collection is shows. db.shows.insert. And I'll just do exactly the same thing. And I'll do quick. And again, if you don't do pretty, this is what it looks like, right? Which is okay. It's just not as readable. So for the show, I just have the name of the artist, and that can be an array, like up there where that's Bob Dylan and Neil Young. I don't know that they've been together for decades, but anyway. The venue ID, which is arena. Again, there's no relationship there. I'm just repeating that so you can find it. The date, time, and I bet there's an official time data type too, but I didn't do that. The date one has the time in it, so I could probably put it there. And then the very last thing I have is just the artists. So I'm going to do db.artists.insert. And without the parentheses, because I've already got the parentheses. Okay, so they've been inserted, and you can kind of see I have just their name and what genres. That's all I have for the artists. So for your assignment where you enter the data, kind of what I want you to do is just screenshots of us successfully entering the data. So a few screenshots. And you don't have to, so like I have probably more artists than you need. I have what, 4 shows? I have I have maybe 4 or 5 fans, but you could probably do 2 or 3 fans. You don't have to do a lot. And again, you don't have to necessarily have this structure. But we'll talk about that in a moment after I go over that. Are there any questions about inserting them? And again, if you don't want to insert them all at once, do them one at a time with the curly braces. Just curly brace to curly brace. If you're getting a lot of errors, one of the ways you can do it is if you go through each one at a time, it'll be easier to locate where the error is usually. Okay, real quickly, I'm just going to, now if I do show databases, wow, this time it gave me, did I do show database last time? That may be why. We've got the test DB we made before. the admin database, which I might show you in security. This is where you enter your security information. This is where you create your roles and your users and all of that. Config, I think is how, I'm not entirely sure what's in config and local. We did a quick movie DB, and then now we have show tracker too. And you can have as many databases as you want on a server, just kind of like with a relational database. So let's say that I want to search for isn't Lord playing this weekend? Next weekend sometime? Let's see anybody that's interested in Lord. So search for fans that are interested in Lord. I kind of like her. I know she's a. So I'm going to do db dot. So we're going to see what fans dot find, and I'll do a parentheses, and then I am going to put in the criteria that we're looking for. So for fans, is it artists? Artists with an S, okay. So I'm going to do artists, colon, and there should be 2 quotes, although it actually would probably work with 1. And we'll do pretty. So it's a little more readable. So this is the criteria, and it's still JSON. It's still doing a key value pair. Does that make sense? So I am going to press enter, and we have Joseph Manley and me that are interested in Lord. What if you only wanted to see, so you were doing a mailing list, what if you only wanted to see their name and their email? I'll show you how to select fields if you want. So I'm going to do the same basic thing, db.fans.find, parentheses, curly brace, artists, colon, Lord, in curly brace, and I'm going to put a comma here, and I'm going to do another curly brace, and I'm going to say name, colon, 1, email, colon, 1, spaces don't matter, but and then I'm going to do ID colon 0, because the ID is always shown. Oops, and then curly brace. So the first thing here is the criteria. And the second one is which fields do we want to see. The one is Boolean, means yes, we want to see it. It assumes 0, right? If you have the second thing, if you don't include the field and give it a 1, it assumes 0. You could, if you wanted to go through and, explicitly 0 them out. The ID, though, is always assumed 1 unless you tell it that it's a 0. So if I do this, I get just the name and the email for the people that are interested in Lord. Does that make sense, sort of? This second set of criteria is basically what fields you want to see. It's like instead of select star, it's select and then you name the columns. How do you know this? Mongo documentation. Because that's the only way I learned it, is go and look for tutorials and things. Let's do, and the other thing that's kind of interesting, notice that the Lord is in the array. I didn't have to tell it was an array. I didn't have to tell it to loop through the array. You've done Python or any other programming language. Generally, when you go look at an array, if you want to check the values in there, you need to loop through the array until you find a match, right? You don't have to do that here. It just picks it out of the array just fine. So I don't know that I have a concert for Lord. Let's see if there's any concerts. So I'll do db.shows.find. And we'll do artist. And I don't know if it was artist or artists. It is plural. Okay. Couple of things about this that'll drive you nuts. It is case sensitive. You have to spell things exactly right. And that's part of why when you're doing this, you should have a naming convention. You should be really careful how you type things in. Ideally, again, when you're entering data, it will come in through forms, so you can control that. But so I'm going to do artists, Lord. And again, I don't know that there are any shows. Let's do pretty. So it comes back with nothing. And that's partially because I don't think there is one. I'm pretty sure if I did db.shows.find artists, so let's do Neil Young. Yeah, that was correct. I do indeed. Good eye. Now that didn't come through. Why? Artist is correct. Neil Young should be in there.
And show artist is singular. For that one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, here it is, artists. Oh, that's fans. Okay, so I'm going to do, the way you get a line back is you just hit the up arrow. Yeah, okay. So there could have been a Lord one. No, there isn't one. Okay. So if you want to, one of the things, because there's no joining, if you want to find an artist that somebody's interested in and you want to go through and you have to do separate queries. You know, there's no way to join it into a single query. Let me see what other kinds of quotes that I have. I have like alternative. So I could do that real quickly. One of the things, as I said, if you want to look into the documentation and play with this, you'll find that it actually has a really rich query possibilities. One of the reasons why NoSQL is popular is not only that it's fast and easy, but you can query it in a lot of different ways and fairly complex queries. Particularly with the JSON, it gives you a lot of ways to do stepped queries and different things. And we're not going to do all of that. I'm just trying to give you a taste. But you can do some pretty complex things. And you can update, just like we did the inserts. We're basically doing select kind of things now. You can also update existing records and change existing records. You can drop records. You can add. add fields to records. There's all sorts of things you can do. So, you know, feel free. I'll show you the documentation in a moment. I did find there were a couple of people that are having a lot of problems with their collection. Sometimes it was easier to just drop the collection and rebuild it. So I am going to look for which fans. This is just another which fans are interested in alternative. So I will do genres, alternative. And if you don't capitalize, I mean, it has to be the same capitalization again. So naming conventions matter a lot. So alternative, I've got these three, four. Sarah, whoever that is, Jeff, me, and Kathy Brown. So, and then I'm going to do, we want to see which artists do this. Now this is a little bit weirder, but it gives you an example of what some of the things can be. I just wanted to look at it again. We could copy it, but DB, and I'm interested in, am I looking for shows? Yeah. Shows. Oh, we want to see which artists are alternative too, right? DB. So we'll do so assuming I'm typing everything correctly. And actually, so I'm mostly interested in just their name. So let's do just their name. Was my field name for artists artist? So we want curly brace artist colon 1, and I'm going to do ID colon 0, and then close the curly brace. So that didn't work. What did I do wrong?
What's wrong alternative?
Yes, you're correct. There we go. So these are the artists that are considered alternative in here. So then what I'm going to do is see about a show, all the shows that have alternative artists. And supposedly you could email them to these people. And then this will be the last thing, and then I'll come around. But I just wanted to give you some idea of how to query. And again, the queries that I'm asking are pretty simple. The other thing is in the assignment, if there's something that doesn't really work for your structure, you're welcome to substitute a query for that. That's something you want to query. So I'm going to do DB shows dot find. Let's move this up a little. And they always start with a parentheses and then a curly brace. And I just want to make, so I'm going to do ampersand, or not ampersand, $ or. Have any of you ever done PHP? So the $ is being used for variable names. You need help getting in? Got it? So I'm going to do an open curly brace here. Actually, an open square bracket here. Because this is where the oh, yes, there should be. Thank you. Can I get back there? Having pressed enter. I'm going to fail this so I can go back. No. There we go. So db.shows.find. This is why it's easier to tape it. If you're not a great typist, this kind of stuff can drive you insane. And then a square bracket, right? And is it a lowercase or? Yeah. All right, so then I can do the different objects in here. So it's artists, right? Or it's artist for show. For show, it was artist, right? Yes. And I'll just do, I actually saw Neil Young with Death Cab for Cutie in Everett, of all places. It wasn't a bad concert. And then I'll close this in a comma, correct? Yeah, that's how it'll be for each of these. And what do you think the or is doing? Anybody? Right. It's basically you're saying if it's any of these, it's if it's Death Cab for Cutie or Monsters of Monsters and Men, which I spelled wrong, or, and I don't know how to get back up there because if I do this, that doesn't work. Does anybody know a quick editing tool for getting back there? Back arrow doesn't work. Up arrow doesn't work. Down arrow doesn't really work. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill this one again.
Just reading it again, but spelled correctly, not giving error.
You know, that's actually a possibility. This is what I'm going to do. Okay, so this is the or. There's other operators too. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is just to show you there are lots of operators with the ampersand. There's also, or not the ampersand, with the dollar sign. There's and, of course, or not, right? So the Boolean operators. But you also have things like sum and count and average. You know, there are a lot of different functions that basically have this dollar sign in front of them. There's also add, if you wanted to add two things, subtract. I think it's actually called difference or diff. But there's a lot of these functions. There's hundreds of them. So this one I need to close the parentheses for. So I forgot to bring that in, but then it'll go. And I didn't do pretty. So it shows that two of those Pearl Jam and of Monsters and Men have concerts. Although Monsters and Men actually hasn't toured in a couple of years, I don't think. I'm going to do the up arrow. Actually, that just gives me, and then I'm going to do pretty. That gave me an error because I spelled pretty wrong. There we go. Now, I've played with this more than you guys have, and you see how many typos and problems I have, so don't be too surprised if you have quite a few. If you go to, I'll show you a tiny bit. I don't know if I showed you this before in the compass. And again, there may be things in the compass that I'm totally missing. It's taking it a long time to load. So you connect. And notice it's got show tracker too. It sees that. It sees all of these, right, that we entered. If I were to enter some other collection, so let's go into, so we're in show tracker. Why is it not showing insert? Well, I guess I have to just, it's in the collection, it's in this. I don't know why. Okay, so there I can do insert document. Let's do, so there's an array here of genres. So if I insert a document, now it gives me this ID whether I want it or not. I could do artist. Anybody have an artist you want me to enter? No artists? You guys are so quiet. What? The Beatles? Okay. And string is fine. I'm just tabbing to get to the next one. So genres, and this one I will make as an array. So the 0 is, I guess, pop. And then I'll do tab and rock. They really didn't do much else, did they? Little tiny. That's about it. They did a little ragtime at times, but that's not. So, and then I can insert that. And actually, it inserted it at the top. So you can do that. And you can also, if you had a sub-object, if you do change this down to object, it'll let you enter a sub-object there. But you can't do multiples at one time that I can tell. And I was looking for something. It would be nice if there were a place where, so like if I'm looking for, this is the query, and it just is terrible. I want to type genres, and it's not letting me. Why won't it let me? Never mind. I have real trouble with this query thing. Tab? No. Okay, so I'm in there now. So I don't know about that. I just have a mess with that. What I really want in this, and I haven't been able to see it, is like a script screen where you could write your own scripts. But you're welcome to play with this if you want. There's nothing at the bottom. What is this? Clones. copy, edit, delete. Options? No. Wait, how does it not? It just doesn't let me write in here. If you guys figure out how to do it for the queries. This one would be like the criteria. These would be the fields you want to see, and this would be the field you want to sort by. But I have trouble with this, as I said, so I do not see I do not see a way to do what I want. What is this? Let's create database. There's nothing at the bottom here, is there? Yeah. Collections, DBS, I'm not sure. 6 databases is all that means. So anyway, if you can share schema as JSON, but I always just get null when I do that. But I actually won't do it when I'm on the shared tracker. So I would do it in the command line, unless you just really want to play with that. All right, I think I've shown you enough. There's a video with all that messing around on it. And what I want you to do is, first of all, I'll come around. But as I said, I think I commented on all your stuff, and most of it looked pretty good. Go into Mongo and start making your database and adding just a few sample records. Some pictures of something like this is sufficient. Just a couple of those for the ones that you've entered. Don't need to enter a bunch of records. 2 or 3 per collection is fine. And then try to do some of the queries that I asked. If they're not, and the queries are in the Canvas, but you're welcome to substitute queries if you want. So if I go to the modules, go down to Mongo, test queries. There aren't a lot there. What artists are considered, choose a genre, what artists are in that genre, what fans follow those artists, what shows exist for those artists, and what are all the shows for a particular venue. Now, if you can't answer that, I mean, 1, you could look at your structure. 2, you could substitute things. It's not a lot to question, though. So, questions? Everything okay? It's clear? Okay. You guys are really quiet today. Is it just that kind of day? All right, I'll come around and see if you have questions about your... I'm turning this off because, as I said, every time I turn it on, it says it's going to die.
I wasn't able to do it.
Oh, we're good.
I downloaded everything, but I can't figure out how to.
We resubmit it individually.
So if you run the installer,
It definitely says
is there an installer?
Oh, that could be resubmitted.
It's just
The only thing that I would say is maybe we add a username to the
downloads.
artist reviews, in which user put the reviews. I could make that
There it is. So
change.
it downloaded a zipped version of this, and so I opened that and then moved it over to the applications folder. And so then I just have this.
So if you run Mongo, just run Mongo. Looks like it's running.
It gives me that, but I don't know this. Like, I don't know how to
Yeah, I'll just do,
translate
let's
that.
see,
So I think the thing is the folders need to be-
username.
Okay, what folders?
There needs to be a data folder.
Oh, okay.
And then,
So how do I,
then
can I just?
submit.
I'm not sure where the data folder.
Sally Rhodey. Show him back up.
I know where it goes. On the internet. Let me look.
I spent some time on Google and it just kept sending me to the same
Just putting in the.
kind of group of stuff and I didn't.
So I'm gonna do MongoDB where
45 minutes on this the other night and got frustrated and stopped. I'm not getting anywhere.
What?
I'm going in circles.
Artist reviews. We already have username and venue reviews. Yeah.
To just buy a secondary machine.
Yeah, the Mongo download center. So get it.
I think when I get my student loans next quarter, that's what I'm doing. This is,
Do you remember? You don't have a clear memory where you put the data folder on a Mac.
I used a command line. It was like,
Yeah, the example here is all command line. Let's see what else they got. How to install on a Mac. Sudo make directory p data. You extracted it already, right? So we just need to make a directory. How do you get to the bash line in a Mac? Yeah,
okay, yeah, I have that.
you just type
Yeah.
terminal.
It's in my, it's down, it's this right here.
So the line that they have is basically sudo make directory. Is that the Mac?
It was running in terminal, but there.
So sudo,
Oh,
not ps.
oh,
I don't know how to show you this.
how is it spelled?
It's sudo. It's
SUDO. Here, I can write it down.
yeah. Sudo is basically, it just means you're going to root.
Okay.
So if you've got it extracted, I think if you just make these directories, it'll run.
Okay. the.
Yeah, I'm not sure what is NKYNOG. I'm not sure what that is. But
I got a quick question for you.
sure.
Can I insert this like this, or is there going to be return lines?
So you'd have to do a comma between these two. Are you going to insert just one at a time? or
Oh,
two?
but one like this.
Yeah, you could insert the two.
Okay, I don't know what that's gonna do. Between the objects, oops.
Yeah,
That's good.
and then you're down to try it. And then if it fails, I would suggest
It failed before, but I didn't have the commas, so.
this show tracker DB
That's what I said.
right? So it's actually DB then. Are you using show tracker? So use show tracker.
I'm using show tracker DB.
Right. So you don't want to say that. You want to say DB venue. DB is the current context.
Okay,
DB is show tracker.
so I say DB
DB dot show venue dot insert.
Okay.
All right. So there's something. The error messages are useless.
Okay.
So you might try it one at a time, or you might just look. So typically, it's a missing comma, or if we got commas after, yeah,
There's
the
one
whole
right.
thing. If you run it all together, it all goes right off.
Yeah. I feel like I looked at it. So we're gonna try it. Boom.
So null is a non, doesn't exist. You don't want it for something that doesn't exist. You don't put it forward. Yeah, but there's no such thing as a null. Or you can write the word null, it just doesn't have yeah. So,
What? Bena Royal Hall.
So for example, what I was thinking is comment.
It works.
Old
Definitely if your mom's basement.
So I could have a lot of shows. So I did like everything except for in shows. That's it. Everything else is that's it. This is like too redundant. Because if you find like the venue and then it's up to
BENAROYA.
yeah, so like, oh no. So I don't know everything. For reviewers, I switched it to advanced. So here, I still have reviews for the fans. Yeah, so maybe they show title and it's the venue and it's the name is I'm gonna put this on the database.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because I
No.
think just the review.
Because like the favorites and all.
You wouldn't know who did.
They really like camping, they just go, okay, so and I can tell it goes. Anytime the favorite hip hop is hip hop, something. Yeah.
And then it's just and early.
Right, so if you have both of these, I mean, you have multiple things, you can do early birds. And then if there are multiples, you can do, square bracket in front of this, and then comments between. So it's just one of the. Does that make sense? What are you guys doing? Okay.
It's basically just more than one thing.
You guys were trying to have
By having like.
How do you do that? Line command. I think the whole thing just busted.
How would you want? I mean, what necessarily, so is that for usually that would be like some artists do the same show.
It like just stopped working, and I was like,
Right, you don't necessarily, I just meant, yeah. You don't need a search. Oh, okay.
So like for.
Yeah, I mean, you could do, it's up to you guys, I understand. So, one person starts at 8, one person starts at 9.
Yeah, for five.
You can probably assume that the office is, their shows are about 45 minutes.
I was like, where's Roberto? When he said he wasn't gonna be here.
Did you get it to work?
No, it's,
What
I
is it?
figured out what this is. This is the user, but it's just not letting me. I don't know how to make that directory. It's telling me that it doesn't. So I do this, and then I do this, and it tells me this doesn't exist. I thought I had Homebrew, but it's not. Let's see if this works.
We shouldn't have to do it as a landmarks if we don't know where it is, location. See if I can find anything more.
I'm trying to find where Homebrew went. I installed it, but now it's not. It's not updating.
What is Homebrew?
Package installer for Mac.
Oh,
You did install Homebrew?
I did, yeah, but now it's just, it wouldn't update it because my internet connection was sketchy the last time I was in here. So. It's coming. So I thought maybe it didn't install, so I tried to do it again, but now it's telling me it exists, but I don't know where.
It doesn't matter, you know. It's just on the line.
I have them saved in my, the ones that go from off time are saved in my favorites.
First, doing it officially, huh? Alright. Kind of good. Install it, a little bit easier to get it on the.
Yeah, but I want to be able to work on it at home, so. I started to do it last time, but the internet connection was super sketchy.
Yeah.
It kept kicking me off.
On his. I didn't talk to you guys yet.
Good. I think we fixed a lot of stuff. So at first I did a date correction,
Okay.
because I was gonna query the date, but I guess I could query
You
the
can,
shows.
your shows.
Yeah, so then I changed that. And then my assistant had more stuff. And I put it on the floor, so. But they have a question.
Sure.
So I got at all the benefits.
So there has to be commas between.
Okay. I don't need a copy.
Yeah, you better go. All right, good. Yeah, those things look good. Yeah. Okay. So which artists did you have the Beatles over here? So that should. I'm curious about something. This is show tracker artist.
Right, yeah.
So the year, I'm wondering if it's. Maybe just maybe
As I said, I don't know that interface very well, so.
Yeah. Just wanted to make certain no focus on that.
I downloaded that app too from the App Store, but I haven't set it up yet. Yeah.
So,
It told me that I needed it and something. I was trying to figure this out the other night.
now, one of the things.
I'm not even sure what this is for.
Something told me to download it from App Store, so I did.
Never.
And it didn't seem like something I'd ever use, so I
Show
just let it exist there and
and then give the show
Really
like,
know, but I think it's like a text
you know,
editor.
if I trust the
that's what
versus like.
I was starting looking after some.
Any luck?
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Suspension's installed.
I've had other people do it on the Mac. I don't know.
It's just me, I'm different.
I don't know. As I said, Macs are a bit of an alien territory for me. The Bash command line I know a little bit from Linux, though, not from the Mac. So,
I wish I knew I was gonna be less into design a year ago when I bought this. But I thought I was going more the design route and I was the time that. And then it's the keychain password. I don't know what that is.
my wife forgot her password on the Mac. That was the one time I had to
Someone
venture
else did
in.
the same thing. I did, thank God. That keychain password is different. than the
Right.
password.
And one of the things when my wife forgot it, I had to go into the Bash shell. And there's a way around it, but you have to reset everything. And then when you come back, everything is popping because nothing has permission anymore. So you have to go and enter the keychain password for everything.
So we've got homebrew update. So if you want to leave it, then you just type in how to create this.
Okay.
Just like how to. Put a copy here.
So since we didn't have any like changes to make, I can just resubmit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you can.
Nice.
Did I even have a second
No,
submission
no,
for this? I don't think that there was that assignment.
This version.
Complete review of JSON.
Is there one? So the review is just for me on the group.
Oh, yeah, there's no submission.
Yeah, so I will just give everybody those points.
And then is it okay for the submission of the collections if I didn't make it pretty? Because otherwise it was just like way too long.
Yeah, you don't need to make it.
Okay.
Suppose it's hit yes. Install. Conversion.
Did you have this much trouble setting it up on nice?
No.
He's saying that it doesn't have permission, but
You're saying it won't, it's not permission denied to write the data to be directories.
Oh,
So we're fixing that. Check which permissions are set. Unless